sustainability at its core is really making sure the company is resilient to all of these outside factors, and ensuring that we're a good neighbor, that we're leaving the world in a better place than, where we started. And so I would say the company culture has always been around doing the right thing, both for our employees, for our customers, for the communities where we live and work.
Hey, power people. Welcome to Renewable Rides. I'm Gareth Evans.
And I'm Dan Roberts. We're the founding team of VECKTA, a platform and marketplace streamlining how companies buy on-site energy.
In each episode, we'll uncover the latest trends, challenges, and triumphs relating to the energy transition through the experiences of our team and our inspiring guests.
Our goal is to help companies take action to create a resilient, profitable, sustainable, and thriving energy future.
Let's go. Hey everyone, and welcome back to an episode of Renewable Rides. And today, Dan and I are really excited to be joined by Kristen Siemen, who's the VP and Chief Sustainability Officer at General Motors. And we're very excited to have her on because she's got massive role, massive opportunities, and they're making a huge impact. And really excited to dig in on that today. Kristen, welcome.
Thank you. Excited to be here with both of you.
So, Kristen, we like to start off with what are you passionate about?
Oh, great question. Probably most importantly, passionate about my family. I have been married for going on 32 years and have 3 sons, 2 that are in college and 1 that is a sophomore in high school. And really just love the opportunity that I have to be in this role. I actually grew up in Warren, Michigan, right where our technology center is and where I work today, and dreamed of working at GM. And so to be able to work at the place I dreamed of in my hometown and working on things that are going to not only make our company stronger and more resilient, but also to create a better world for my kids and for hopefully their kids someday is really just an absolute privilege.
Amen. I love that, and did not know that was your hometown, and that makes it even more exciting. Kristen,
Yeah.
you've got a big role, and I see that as we were prepping, you've kind of had many roles, but tell us about what your role is today as Vice President and Chief Sustainability Officer, and what success looks like in that role.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been with GM for over 30 years now. I spent actually most of my career in product development. I'm an engineer by degree, and so had an opportunity to work in a number of our engineering organizations and lead a lot of product development spaces. And I've been in this role now for about 3 years, which is really about tying our sustainability strategy into our business strategy and driving that throughout our company. We've set some pretty big goals around our plan to be carbon neutral in our products and operations by 2040, working towards our ambition of being 100% EV in the light duty in the US by 2035, and really driving a number of initiatives across the company and with partnerships with our supply base and others around how we reduce our carbon footprint. So it's really about finding those opportunities and helping everyone understand what their piece of the puzzle is and how they can all contribute to our future success.
Kristen, on a personal level, how did you get into the sustainability side? Because more and more people are coming into the role directly, maybe without an understanding of how the business actually operates or functions, or how to fight for capital, all these kind of competing needs. What was your career like getting to this point, and what made you want to jump into the sustainability role?
Yeah, great question. So full transparency, I got a phone call and asked me to come into this space. But the backstory behind that is, prior to this role, I was leading what we called our global energy strategies. So I was working on all of our certification and compliance, our corporate fuel economy, and really on our greenhouse gas work, but from a regulatory and a product development standpoint. So I had the team that was leading aero development and all of our testing, and really helping to drive the product to accomplish what we needed from, a future sustainability standpoint. I actually worked very closely with my predecessor on setting our initial goals around, 2040 and 2035 in our EV portfolio. And so it really was a natural transition. I would say when I first came into the role, I was a lot more unsure of how they connected, but it's really been a great opportunity to understand the business, have worked within so many different areas of the company to be able to understand how sustainability fits in and what it takes to put things into into our portfolio or into production or our future plans. And as you said, it's a balancing of what we do today, how we allocate capital, how we work and design products up front, how we select materials. There's so many different aspects of what we need to do to really achieve the future that we want, that I think having the understanding of the business and the knowledge of what our vehicle development process is has really been a great advantage. And honestly, as an engineer, engineers are trained to solve problems. And so there's really no bigger challenge or problem than that we have than dealing with climate change and how that impacts our overall business.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And GM and your peers, you all have this massive kind of ecosystem, if you will, both upstream and all of the suppliers you work with and the raw materials that are going to your suppliers, and then downstream into the utilization of your products. Can you tell us a little bit more about some of the things that you and your team are doing, I guess, in all three facets, upstream within your own operations and then downstream across retail?
Sure. I mean, we've been, working in this space for a long, long time. If you think about some of the early work on energy efficiency and waste reduction, we've been on that journey for a while. Even our renewable energy goals were set back in 2016. We're really proud of how much we've been able to accelerate that. The original goal to be 100% renewable was 2050. We actually announced last year that we'll achieve that in the US next year, so 25 years ahead of schedule. We've made great progress on energy efficiency within our facilities. Waste reduction is another area that we've had a lot of success. We've actually over accomplished our goals, beat our goals 2 years in a row. So continuing to look for ways to drive that. If you look at GM's total footprint, our carbon footprint, Scope 1 and 2 is really less than 2% of the overall impact. The largest impact that we can make is in the transition of our vehicles to EV, to the transition of our the customer usage, or Scope 3 Category 11. Now, the only way that gets to zero is if they're charged with green energy as well. So a lot of work that we do, not only on the product side and the transformation towards electric, but really partnering with utilities. Our renewable energy goals help us with our own Scope 1 and 2, but they also really help from providing added additionality to the grid. And so it's exciting to see those transitions. Our supply base, we do a lot of work with our suppliers, not only on the parts that they supply to us and new materials and new ways of selecting and assembling, so that we're no longer looking at just how the part goes into the vehicle, but how do we look at disassembly and recyclability, as well as helping our suppliers on their own, transitions towards renewable energy work that they can do in scope 1 and 2 and energy efficiency and water efficiency in their own facilities. We actually have a energy treasure map that we have shared with all of our suppliers and made available to others that really shows how we go about evaluating our facilities and driving those initiatives to make that transition and really see those savings.
One of the things within that I think is particularly important, and you might be able to share with our listeners, is rallying stakeholders within your organization can be a big enough challenge across, we were talking ahead of time, across real estate and facilities and procurement and finance, but doing so within third-party organizations, and in your case, we're mentioning suppliers, can be an even greater challenge. Do you have any other examples or pieces of advice that you could give to our listeners on ways that you've seen GM's ability to affect change within partner organizations?
Yeah, I think a lot of this is about collaboration. It's really about helping everyone understand how they fit within this overall challenge. And especially, I think, helping our supply base understand how this is a good thing to do for the business. It's not just a good thing to do for the environment or good for GM, it's good for their business. At the end of the day, saving energy, saving water, eliminating waste, those are all things that are good financially as well. They're cost reduction items. And so helping them understand how to make that transition and how to build that into their overall, product cycles, I think is super important. We run what we call a supplier. We have a supplier council, but we also have a supplier sustainability council where we work directly with them on setting some of these goals with some of our key suppliers. So we get their voice into the process and we help and we learn from each other. And one of the exciting things about that is we've now seen our suppliers start their own sustainability council. So they're working it down through the tier 2s, tier 3s, tier 4s. And the snowball effect is really occurring. And so it's really having the effect and the impact that we had hoped, and helping everyone understand how they fit into this overall challenge and then ultimately the overall solutions.
I love the treasure map concept, Kristen. I think you're speaking our language where sustainability is often perceived to come at the expense of profitability. And they're, to your point, they actually go completely hand in hand when you do it right. And so I love that. Amazing progress. And I'm sure it's not all been smooth sailing. What have been some of the challenges or biggest lessons learned for you along the way?
Oh, yeah. Nothing's easy, right? Nothing. It really takes focus and dedication and discipline. I think one of the challenges is often to get people started. I often see, whether it be people on our own team in the company or suppliers, they see this big mountain in front of them, and it's hard to take the first step because they don't know how to get to the top. And so if we keep focusing on making small steps and making progress, I say better, not perfect. It really helps. I've had incredible support from all of the top leadership at General Motors and our stakeholders to really help guide and show that this is important to the company. And it, as you just said, it's really helping everyone in the business and helping all of our stakeholders understand that this isn't a choice. It's sustainability. It doesn't have to be a one or the other, whether it be around profitability or optimization. It really is how you weave it into your overall business strategy. And it can be good for the environment, can be good for the planet, and it can be good for the business.
One of the things I'm curious about is, and maybe we can rewind, and I know you're 3 years into this role, but you've been within GM for 30 years or so, as you mentioned. Now it seems like an ingrained part. You've talked a lot about the senior leadership and everybody rallying around. Early on, where did you see the kind of catalyst coming from? Was it Was it consumer pressure? Was it capital markets? Was it regulatory? Was it some combination of that? Or was it a groundswell internally that really helped catalyze this effort?
A good question. I mean, I would say it's a little bit of everything. We've had a sustainability organization for a long time. We've had an environmental team at GM for a long time, where this isn't something new to the company. Now, granted, some of that was maybe initially started because of policy or regulation, but really there's been a passion within the company, and I'd say within the employees. If you go to really any of our facilities, there's some type of wildlife habitat or nature preserve. Take great care in how we show up in a community and that we're good neighbors. And so I think what happened over time, at least from what I've seen in my time, both in my previous role and this one, is a lot of this has kind of now come under the umbrella. Sustainability at its core is really making sure the company is resilient to all of these outside factors, and ensuring that we're a good neighbor, that we're leaving the world in a better place than where we started. And so I would say the company culture has always been around doing the right thing, both for our employees, for our customers, for the communities where we live and work. And so having it all now under an umbrella of sustainability, I think really just helps connect the dots to the business a little bit more maybe than we did in the past. But I don't think it's something that, just changed overnight. And maybe we talk about it a little bit more or talk about it in a little different way, but it really is about, how we transition and how we move the business forward. I mean, an EV transition is a great growth opportunity for GM, and it's a great product for our customers. So I think it all ties back together.
So good. And in terms of your peers, Kristen, some of them may have just been appointed. Some of them, their companies never thought about this. Some of them are well on their way. Like, what advice do you have in terms of those either starting out or navigating this? What are the biggest takeaways for you, beyond the better not perfect, which I like, because it's all about taking that first step, isn't it? And actually getting going with something, because you slowly see the compounding value build. But how do people get going, and what advice do you have for them?
Absolutely. Just start. It's like anything, whether it be a new fitness routine or education. I said my kids are starting. I have one as a freshman in college this year. We're trying to reinforce with him, right? It's just start off, and it's going to all work itself out. And I think it's the same in this space. I often say the first thing is to kind of take a look at where you're at, set a goal, even if the goal's not perfect. Maybe it's only internal, maybe it's not public, but set some sort of a goal. Once you have a goal, you can start measuring and you can start tracking and you can start moving the needle and putting initiatives in place. Without a goal, it's really hard to get anybody moving. And then oftentimes, I think what we found with our renewable energy journey, what we found with our waste targets, we can actually get there faster than we thought we could. A lot of this really comes down to basic, business principles of doing the right thing and doing it as efficiently as you possibly can, and clearly getting the leadership team to understand why it's important for the company, and helping to be advocates for the space. And sometimes that's meeting them where they're at. Not everyone has passion around this, but almost everyone, I think I could almost say 100%, has passion about good business decisions and finding ways to save cost. And a lot of times that's what this is about.
I feel that you're in this for a lot of kind of personal and kind of legacy type of reasons, but you sound very pragmatic, which we find is the best way to get going, which it often comes back to the financials and the economics and how this can impact our business over the long term. You've mentioned several times about collaboration, and I'm curious to pull on that thread a little bit further. Empower co-creation is one of our core values here at VECKTA, and we see being able to pull people together is the only way to get these things done. Who do you find yourself collaborating with, both internally within General Motors as well as externally?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the best part of my job, and the one that probably the key ingredient to being successful in this role is around collaboration. You mentioned internally, it really goes across the entire company, from our manufacturing facilities and our leaders in the plants and the employees that are building our vehicles every day, and how they handle shutdown procedures in the facility, how they handle waste, to our product development team on how we're designing parts, how the release engineers think about what materials they choose, how to design the system so that we can think about recycling or remanufacturing, to our creative design organization that is starting to think about very future materials and how they look and feel, and do they meet the creative and eye we have for design. So internally, it really is through all aspects of the company, even from a technical standpoint, on how we work with our controllership and on ensuring that our data is accurate and meets the standards like a financial report would. To externally, clearly our supply base are huge partners in this. We've issued a GM supplier pledge where we ask them to make their own commitments around carbon neutrality, also a score on EcoVadis, so things like human rights and fair labor practices, to collaborating with NGOs and really other CSOs. The CSO community is a very friendly community, very collaborative on whether it be challenges that we have with new reporting standards, or just, as I said, even things like energy efficiency and how we run that in our plants. So it of all the opportunities and assignments I've had throughout my career, there's been no opportunity to collaborate internally and externally like this one. So it's really a key point to success.
Love that. And Kristen, I think a lot of companies feel nervous about either first mover advantage or trying something new or innovating, especially in businesses that have like lean margins. What's the balance between investing today and hitting quarterly goals versus long-term objectives? How are you thinking about innovation, especially from a energy transition sustainability perspective, and how much does it feed into your strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I would say innovation is core to what we do at GM. We're, and again, speaking as an engineer, and, and I think innovation, it's not just about the big giant, moonshots that sometimes we talk about, but innovation is sometimes in very small ways that, we don't necessarily, have a headline around. Some of the best days are the days where we identify a new way to handle a particular waste stream, or make it more effective in our facilities. But we're doing everything from innovating new materials to, in our facilities, new ways of processing, as we make the transformation to our vehicle plants assembling EVs, to new ways of mining materials and battery technology. So innovation is absolutely at the core and at the heart of what we do day in and day out in the company. And we've got, a lot of ways that we're partnering, whether it be, new, like I talked about new materials, but we've even done things where we, through our GM Ventures team, we've invested in a company that's doing new offshore wind technology, a company called Wind Catching Systems. And so instead of the big floating, wind turbine that we're used to seeing. It's an array of turbines that can produce much more energy, much less real estate on the ocean floor. So it really is a space that's wide open for innovation, that I think continues to show the creativity and competitiveness of the company.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Do you think specifically within energy, whether it be energy project, I love that example with the wind capture technology, the offshore wind capture technology. Can you share a couple more examples of either projects that you guys are directly involved in, projects at your facilities, or even downstream in some of the new EVs or others that you're sharing about? Like what gets you personally most excited?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of things happening. We actually did a ribbon cutting for a new solar farm down in Arkansas a week or two ago that is adding renewable energy directly to the grid that supplies energy for our two plants in Lansing as well as our plant in Wentzville. We've done a lot of work with the Department of Energy over the years. In fact, they recognized one of our plants, Fort Wayne Assembly, just last week for an innovative heat recovery system that enables us to produce our vehicles there using 30% less natural gas and the associated carbon with that. So there's energy efficiency projects that we're doing across the board, whether it be, focus on small things, like I said, on shutdown and making sure that our equipment is running as effectively as it can, to larger projects on how we transition some of our equipment from running on natural gas to being electrified. And so a lot happening in the space and a lot of opportunity for new innovation going forward in the future.
Kristen, just on the EV side, how do you think about, there's a lot of talk in the market about the charging infrastructure. In your role, do you see that as being part of your mission to support that rollout and support the grid? Or is it, we're going to produce the cars and it's up to the rest of the market to figure that out and ensure that the energy is available?
Yeah. I'm not one to shy away from being part of the solution for anything. Neither is, our company as a whole. And certainly we have things that we control, and then there's things that we can influence. And so, if we look at, again, our carbon footprint, the part we control is rather small, of our own facilities. You can argue we control the EV transition, but clearly that's a market-driven thing as well. But we've said all along, we can't do this by ourselves. We want to be part of the solution. So GM's been part of a number of partnerships around charging infrastructure, whether it be from a policy standpoint, or a great example is the Pilot and Flying J facilities that you're starting to see across the major thoroughfares in the U.S., which will make charging more readily available as people are on, more longer trips. And so I think we've got to continue. We do a lot of work with other companies and organizations on things like the Clean Energies Buyer Alliance or CEBA, where, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, other companies are part of that as well, that are not only finding ways to make the renewable energy transition happen faster, whether it be from permitting or processes, but working together on ways to look at what the future is going to be with, we're going to have a large car park of EVs that are frankly energy devices that can help with, grid reliability and providing backup power. So we really are focused on it holistically, certainly on what we control, but then on what we can influence and what's really important for the total transition to occur.
You just hit on something that gets me, my mind spinning and me very excited, is to think about what the grid looks like, or maybe the grid or just the consumption of energy looks like 20, 30 plus years from now, when you have all these mobile batteries and you have vehicle to grid and you have more communication from the utility to consumers. It's an exciting, kind of thing to think about.
I agree.
My bad. Question. Maybe that's a good transition to some of our high voltage questions and round now, which is I'll open with, if you could be any one energy technology, what would it be and why?
Oh, I'd have to pick an EV because I think, a vehicle is a real emotional purchase. It says a lot about who you are and what your lifestyle is. Thinking about how, people name their cars. There's so much passion, and it's often, the second largest purchase that somebody will make in their lifetime. And so our purpose at GM is that we pioneer the innovations that connect people to what matters. And if I think about what an EV can do, and what it signifies from a, not only a mobility and a freedom standpoint, but also how positive it can be from an environment and a climate standpoint, I think that'd be my first choice.
Love that. And it's a super exciting time, isn't it? I think you're spot on in terms of the emotion. I think it's a hearts and minds game right now. And every week it feels like there's good news, bad news, and you can take it however you want, but it's happening. And I think people need to realize that. And it's going to happen at scale very quickly, I believe. Kristen, this is a very dynamic market and there's lots going on. Beyond listening to Renewable Rides, where else would you get your information from in the market? Is there any particular newsletter or book or podcast that you really enjoy listening to that you'd recommend to our listeners?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I feel like I'm reading constantly, but I would say honestly, probably the best information I get is from talking to peers, talking to other NGOs, and understanding the challenges and the opportunities that we all have as we work together. There's a few different organizations that I'm part of that really the focus is on how do we move the needle together. It's not about competing. It's I say we can, compete on products and technology, but we need to collaborate on solutions. And there's a lot of great forums that enable that in this space. And podcasts like this are just another opportunity for us to all share and learn from each other.
Yeah, that's great. We'll have to get a short list of your favorite collaborators afterwards and bring them onto the show and help that expand more publicly. And I think just to close us out, Kristen, as a family lady, as a long-term employee at GM, who's obviously very passionate about this, when you think about the impact you want to leave in your life, what does success look like from a energy and sustainability perspective?
My goal would be that at General Motors or really anywhere, but if I just talk about inside GM, that sustainability would be part of everything we do, just like safety and quality is. And we're making a lot of progress there. And I would say we're well along that journey. And I think we just have continued opportunity to build it into the core of everything we do.
Thank you. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for GM's leadership. It's inspiring to see, and especially with such a prominent company that can have such a big impact for taking the steps that you have over the past couple decades, and I'm sure all that is coming. Thank you for taking the time as well, and for stepping in, taking the call, and answering the call when you received it 3 years ago. It's a big challenge, and we need more people like you to drive this change.
Oh, thank you. It's a great opportunity and a great honor.
Thank you very much. Hey, Dan, Kristen's great, isn't she?
What an impressive leader and career. And like I said in our closing there, I'm glad she not just took the call, but answered the call on stepping up into this role.
Yeah, I really like her approach, and particularly the things that stood out for me was the whole treasure map concept. I'd actually really like to see that document, because I think very often people who first come into these roles and or are trying to navigate it, they see it more as like, where are the bear traps and how do I avoid the risks and the pitfalls versus how do I hunt out the treasures? And I think that's the mindset change, isn't it, that really generates a game-changing attitude in businesses. Is this is genuinely the profitable thing to do, and where are these treasures? How do I prioritize the greatest returns on investment while also having a really positive impact? And I thought that was awesome. And I think just get started mentality of take that first step, get after it, set some goals, start working towards them, and you'll probably surprise yourself, I think was the biggest takeaways for me. How about you?
Which are both very pragmatic approaches, which is what I took away from her approach. And maybe it's her background as an engineer and looking at how to get things done. But that she kept coming back to many times, that these are sound business decisions, that they're not just doing them to be green or be sustainable, but these are the right things to do for their business, for their community, for their employees. And I think that's a really pragmatic approach, and certainly one that we obviously look to help support clients in doing, is finding where the most economically viable options are and putting one foot in front of another and making it happen. And I clearly got so caught up in the conversation and I was having so much fun that I teleported myself into the energy gang with the high voltage comments. Clearly, we'll work to rectify that and bring back the power surge here. So I really enjoyed that and look forward to continued collaboration with her and her colleagues at GM.
Yeah, it was great. I hope she doesn't mind me sharing, but after we finished recording, she said a quote that a mum had shared with her, and it was, "You'll never be sorry, and it doesn't cost you anything to be nice." And I thought that was a really nice way to kind of frame it all up. And I think the reality for businesses is the better you do, the more good you can do, and vice versa. The more good you are, the better you'll get. And I think there are a lot of no regret decisions to be made here, and let's get after it. Really good attitude. Loved it.
Yeah. Cheers, Kristen.
All right. See you next time. We receive a lot of questions from business leaders around the world wanting to learn more about the energy transition, what is possible, and where to start. So to help you stay informed and up to date on best practices, opportunities, risks, and success stories, we created an industry newsfeed at VECKTA.com/news with all our podcasts, blogs, and newsletter. Check it out and connect with Dan, myself, and the VECKTA team to learn more. Cheers and have a good one.